moves online education forward.
Good afternoon. Everyone can hear me okay, right? Okay, yeah, I typically don't need microphones to project them pretty loud. But as stated before, my name is Antoinette Osterlein, and I'm going to be talking to you today about how interactive video helps to move the field of online education forward. So for my presentation today, the things that I plan to address: instructional design in the career college setting. So primarily I have worked doing curriculum design in the career college setting, and there are some unique challenges that come along with that. Also, challenges of the online classroom, which I'm sure everyone here is familiar with some of the woes of technology and getting students to commit to their online courses, getting instructor buy-in for online courses that they're teaching. I'm also going to show you some evidence of an interactive course versus a non-interactive course and the performance data for both of those. And then finally answering the question of, does interactive video improve education? Which, if you were paying attention to the title, you see that it does, based on what I've said. Okay, so just a little explanation about the data that was used for this study that I'm presenting to you. It comes from Independence University, which is located in the United States. They are based out of the state of Utah, and they are a fully online program. So in addition to Independence University, within the company there are a few other campuses as well that go under different names. And those campuses are usually on-ground campuses. So we have on-ground campuses located in the states of California, Utah, Colorado, I think that's all of them. Oh, Idaho as well. There's a few campuses spread out. And so sometimes when students attending those campuses need to either make up a course, or maybe they would like to take an extra course on top of their regular load that they're enrolled in for the mod. And I'll explain that term mod in just a little bit. But sometimes when we have students that need to take an additional course, or maybe one just isn't offered at their on-ground location, they can come to Independence University since we're all connected. But Independence itself is primarily online. You heard me say mod. That's short for modular system. And this is basically the same as what I am hearing about BU implementing with the 4 weeks and 1 subject, and then students move on. And so that system is very popular in the United States. It sounds like it's catching on down here in Australia. And given how adult learners really want to have control over their time, they want to have flexibility, they want to be able to attend in sort of the fashion in which they would like to, and also from the convenience of their homes, that works out really well for students that we've seen in the United States. But it's also an accelerated pace type of a program, so things are moving quickly. Because there are only 4 weeks per course, there's not a whole lot of room for, well, I didn't turn that in, I didn't have time, etc., because things are moving a lot faster. And usually our students take 2 courses at a time, so for every 4 weeks, they will be enrolled in 2 courses. The offerings at Independence University include computer science, business, medical specialties, respiratory therapy. Another one that's not listed there is graphic arts is also offered. Okay, so some of the challenges in the online curriculum world. Reaching all learning types across all subjects. So when it comes to the online classroom, and I'm so happy that I see nods, everyone's like, yes, yes, I get it. You know, the online classroom, we've all experienced the woes of creating a course or creating just sections of a course that are very text heavy, which of course for the read-write people, that's not a huge problem. They'll take their notes and they can digest that pretty nicely. But for the other learning types, you know, that's kind of a turn-off. Even sometimes for the read-write learners, it's like, I don't really want to have to read through all these pages anymore. This is boring. Challenging students to appropriate levels. Making sure that if we are teaching a 100 level course, we are testing and challenging students to an appropriate level for 100 level. versus 400 level. Things shouldn't be a simple walk in the park at 400 level. Now you've progressed into your program. You are much further into your degree program and closer to graduation, so things are going to get a little bit more difficult, and making sure that we gauge that properly. Sometimes we have issues where a 300 level course is a little bit too rigorous, whereas the 400 level course is much easier, and so we have to reassign some of the deliverables in that way. And then of course, moving from the abstract to the tangible. That's another challenge that we face with online learning, is a lot of times getting students to conceptualize what it is that we are trying to show them. It takes some imagination with that so that students can grasp those concepts. And see here with these shapes, I was trying to represent the 4 major learning types with read, write, and then auditory, visual, and then kinesthetic or tactile learners. People who like to be hands-on, like to manipulate things, and do that for themselves. So what I found is that if you are going to be successful in the online classroom with taking those abstract concepts and making them into something that is more tangible, interactive content helps. So H5P is an excellent tool for this, as everyone here has probably already recognized. And what I have seen is that the success of the online classroom hinges on the ability to take the abstractness and make it concrete so students have something to look at and engage thoughtfully with. That also supports the learning concepts that we outline with learning objectives, with the course outline. And then this helps us to bridge the gap between the information that students need and the student themselves. So let's talk a little bit more about bridging the gap. So what I'm about to show you is a course comparison of, and I realize these course names, you guys are like, what is that? Bio 110 is the interactive course that I'm using for this study here, that is human anatomy and physiology. And as I was discussing earlier with someone else, human anatomy and physiology lends itself very nicely to H5P. You can do all kinds of diagrams. My favorite thing is hotspot images. So I've created tons of hotspot images, but then of course, interactive video. Now that we have this new branching tool that's coming out, just getting students to choose their own adventure, things like that. So Bio 110, Human Anatomy and Physiology, is going to be compared to Bio 101, which is Introduction to Biology. So the two courses have similar subject matter, and at our school they are taken by similar student populations. We have students who are enrolled for medical specialties, as well as students enrolled for respiratory therapy. Both of those populations take these courses. Both of these courses were revised at the same time. They were revised by my team. We took on Bio 110 first, and then we did Bio 101 about 2 weeks later. Both have been offered consecutively since their revision in 2016. I also want to share that. I guess I already did share that. Both were revised at the same time, both closely related subjects. As I mentioned already, Bio 110 has interactive content in it. Bio 101 does not. And Bio 110 was the one that was revised first. So we did the interactive course first, and then we moved to the one that doesn't have the interactive elements in it. So these are the findings that I had, and this graph here is capturing quarters 3 and 4 for 2017. The gold line there at the top is for the Human Anatomy Physiology course, Bio 110, with the interactive elements in it. The red line that you see there is for Bio 101, the non-interactive course. And I'm sure nobody here is surprised to see that the interactive course is outperforming the non-interactive course.
In what sense is it outperforming? What are you actually measuring there?
I apologize. When I say outperforming, the numbers that I am representing here are for completion rates. So these are percentages of the completion rates as far as the number of students who got a passing score at the end of the class. That's a completion. So we have more students passing with Bio 110, the interactive course, over the Bio 101 course that doesn't have the interactive elements in it. And this was for the last half of 2017. This graph shows 2018, and you'll notice here that we stop at 11 because 2018 is not done yet, but this is representation for performance over 2018. And what I do want to mention too, because I know that you're probably seeing a lot of variation in the numbers and what's that all about? There's a lot of factors that influence completion, influencing whether or not students get a passing grade in courses. Some of the things that are not represented here are the instructor who is teaching the course. So what tends to happen is we have some instructors who offer or who teach courses on a regular basis. They're dynamite, they're great at it. We have some instructors who maybe don't teach the course quite as often. Their completion is good, but not as great because maybe they're not as familiar, they haven't gotten their feet wet quite as much with the course. Also, what we notice is that there is a trend in the time of year in which courses are offered and how the course does. So at Independence University, I told you we work on a modular system, so every 4 weeks students change classes. They usually take 2 classes at a time. This is also a year-round system, so that means that they are attending January, February, March, April, May, all through the year. The only break that our students get is in December for the Christmas holiday and into New Year's. So they get 2 weeks off at that time. And so what tends to happen is in the summertime, which in the United States that's from roughly June to the beginning of September, students fall off. They want to go to the beach, they want to go on vacation, they want to go hang out with their kids, they want to do other things besides sit behind a computer and learn stuff. So we tend to see that attendance and engagement, completion, just as a whole, across all of the colleges, across all of the subjects, tends to dip during the summertime. Also during the holiday season, we see people kind of checking out, I'd rather just engage with my family, or we have students that come from all different backgrounds, and a lot of them do have extenuating circumstances. You know, suddenly now we don't have a place to live. We don't have internet access, we don't have, someone's laptop was stolen, they no longer have their tablet, things like that. But usually around the holiday season too, the beginning and end of the year, that's when we find that we start running into issues with students staying engaged and plugged in. And those are just some environmental factors that will affect our course completion. But overall, through the course of 2018, you see the same thing that we saw on the last graph with 2017 as far as the interactive course having higher completion rates than the non-interactive course. And I want to show you this chart here. It's the same data that you're seeing here. It's just represented differently. I think that this will have a better impact for me to show you just how impactful the interactive course has been. In some areas, you'll notice that the interactive course is soaring above the completion rates of the non-interactive course. Specifically, when I look at Mod 4, the numbers there for Mod 4, we're past 90% with completion there, whereas with the non-interactive course, you know, we're not even hitting 50. So, and I think that this is probably a good point at which to also share that at the institution Independence University, I'm a bit of an H5P underdog, so every course that contains H5P elements at Independence University, it has it because I put it in there. I really wanted it to have that. And so because of that, I have it's a struggle, I guess you could say, with getting more buy-in, getting more adaptation with H5P. So we have some courses that have it, but I would like to see it adapted much more widespread so that I can have more data to report on to show just how beneficial it is and what exactly is working as far as what types of elements. So some observations based off of what I just showed you, and also with my experience of working with H5P. I would say that H5P integration requires nuance. So as much as we love all of these beautiful tools that give us color, give us interaction, we can touch stuff, we can flip things over, we can drag and drop. From an instructional design standpoint, I love it, but it's required us to elevate our course writing skills in order to support these tools. So if you can imagine, you have a house of cards, and H5P is like a brick that you come and set on that house of cards. What's going to happen to the house of cards? It's going to cave in because it is not built to withstand something like that. It's not built to support it. That's sort of the analogy that I make between course writing and instructional design and the use of H5P. When we first started integrating it, I think that part of the problem that we were having is that our course writers were not creating the space in which the H5P modules could sit. It was just kind of like, okay, we are talking about the blood system today, and then cool, look at this really nice matching piece that you can do here. And as beautiful as that is and eye-catching, if we don't somehow integrate it with the deliverables that we're offering and elevate the quality of the deliverables that we're offering, the H5P loses its value. The interactive content that was put into Bio 110, the Human Anatomy and Physiology, that was the earliest of its kind at Independence University. We've since done a few more. But working with H5P has also changed workflow objectives. So whereas before we had subject matter experts who would come to us with ideas of what deliverables could look like, usually again, very analog, very single direction type communication. You know, here is a video for the student to watch and consume and take notes from. Or here is something that was written that the student can read and take notes from and then pull their takeaways from it. Instead, we're trying to move in a more dynamic atmosphere, so we are giving information but also kind of flipping the classroom, flipping the approach so that students are taking more ownership of the tasks that they're doing in the courses. Requires us to think a little bit differently about instructional design, but I love it. I love change and challenge and doing something new. I often get bored if I'm doing the same thing over and over again, and H5P never makes me bored. Another observation too that came from this is that even though I just showed you those charts with the red line, the non-interactive course that's not doing quite as great as the one that has the interactive elements in it, one argument that I would like to make is that the content for that non-interactive course was actually made better from the experience that we had working with the interactive elements of H5P on Bio 110 before we touched it. So in this way, I think that the exposure to the H5P and the interactive elements and the need for elevating our course writing, elevating our instructional design skills, that actually helped us to make the content of the non-interactive course much better. We were using better graphics, we were creating better scenarios and backgrounds that were more immersive. And I think that that, in and of itself, even though that course is not performing to the same level as the interactive one, I think that if we hadn't touched the interactive course first and then done that one, the numbers would probably be lower. I don't think that our instructional design skill was going to be quite as good as it was after we worked with H5P. So, some conclusions. Using interactive content has increased instructional design skill. I think that because it challenges us to have to think in alternative ways about how we're delivering the information to students and how we can set up some of these modules that we are using with H5P, that has made us better as a team, or at least I know for myself, I can say that it's made me much better at instructional design. Obviously, if we are stretching our skills and improving them as instructional designers, that helps the students benefit. They're always going to win in scenarios like that when we work to present information in new ways, especially now that we have branching. Can't wait to do that. And then another conclusion, and this is something that if anybody has any feedback on this, that's great. I am not super techie. I do basic HTML coding, and that's about it. I'm starting to step more outside of this, but easier integration with Canvas, because we use the learning management system Canvas, easier integration with that would help with faster adoption of H5P, I believe, or at least I know at my institution that's always a big thing that I always have to face. And then of course, answering the question, yes, H5P interactive content does, yeah, I have a circle there. It does improve education by moving it forward. Anything that's going to challenge people to step outside of their comfort zone and to approach things in new ways, obviously that's going to elevate the quality of things. There's a learning curve at first. Some people can be resistant a lot of times, but overall I see that the ends are justifiable. It's something that we should strive towards. And I will take questions.
And I have a microphone.
Hello, that was excellent. Thank you. Will you be making the Bio 101 into an integrative or interactive module as well?
I'm so glad that you asked that. That's actually the first thing on my to-do list once I get back to the States.
Okay, right. And then we can see the numbers.
Yes, exactly. Others?
Two questions, because I'm greedy. The first was just a question about why didn't you incorporate that in the second bio course in the first place? Was it resistance from staff, or was it you wanted that baseline comparison, or was it just sheer time involved?
It was a combination of things. So at the time that these courses were created, actually Bio 110, the one that does have the interactive stuff in it, that was the first course that received H5P elements at our school. And so I think that initially my directors, the deans, they wanted to see how does this do? Are we gonna get some good results from this first? And then when it came time for Bio 101, which was the very next course that we developed, we put the H5P down because there was some resistance. I'll be honest, there was resistance from people about the integration of it. Also, we were on a faster timeline to finish Bio 101 than we were to finish Bio 110. So because we had to work to get that one done faster, we decided to forego the interactive elements. And I'm kind of glad that we did that now, because now I have this comparison that I can point to and show people. So that's the reason why.
And my other question was more about you talking about matching the learning activity to the content. Could you expand a little bit more on that in terms of what an example of a good match would be versus a bad match? You sort of hinted at, just a matching activity might not.
Right.
Because I guess as a background to that, we've created, before H5P came on, some really interactive tools that assessed people on what they've just been taught, and that was, I was a bit pulling out of our builder because they were just terrible. And then we started seeing some academics using them before students were introduced to the content, so they explore the concepts and then go, oh, that's why this is important, and I need to learn more about this.
Right, and so the experience that we have had is similar. We had some like self-assessment tools that we were putting in, and we were finding that, and it was coming after the lessons, after everything, and we were finding that students were just like, hey, I'm done with the lesson, I don't really want to touch that. And so they weren't using the H5P that we had worked to put into the course. But then when we started putting practice elements for the biology tests, so some hotspot images, diagrams of the hand to show the bones of the hand or the muscles and things like that, so that they could quiz themselves and kind of get a refresher on it, then go on to the assessment, and maybe you got a better grade on that assessment because you were allowed to practice beforehand. That was much more successful. Takes planning though. I think that before, when we were putting stuff in at the end, I think that the idea of having the H5P element sounded really exciting, but nobody really thought about where to put it and where we could get the most value from it, the most bang for our buck, so to speak. And so that's why we were putting it into spaces that either students weren't touching it, or you know, they weren't finding it was useful. They would sometimes give us feedback that, hey, maybe you should make one to go here. Or there's some gaps between the last course that I took and this one. Maybe you could create something that would fill some of that in. And those are some of my favorites too. I call them fillers, so to speak, to fill in some of the gaps between our courses. The courses in a program and a catalog, they don't always just match up perfectly, you know. Sometimes there's some space between them as far as terms and knowledge base that the students will need to have before they move on to that next course in succession. H5P allows us to fill in a lot of those gaps too.
Any further questions? Well, why don't we give Antoinette a round of applause? And then go and enjoy afternoon tea, ready to come back to 2 more